I believe it's time to begin. So first, let me say thank you so much to all of our panelists for being here. But before we get into introductions, I would like to just start with, my name is Malek Najjar, and I'm an associate professor of theater arts at the University of Oregon. But I'd like to really thank Network 1017, the organization that was able to make all of this happen for us today. It's a nonprofit organization committed to promoting higher education, leadership development, career success, and a nationwide and international professional network within our community. And I want to especially thank Joe Ghazal, Ramzi Saeed, and Sally Abul Hassan for making this event possible. Thanks to all of you. We couldn't have done it without you, and I'm really grateful for all of your support. But now I would like to introduce our amazing panelists, some of my favorite people in the world. And I know several of you well. I don't know others of you well, but I just want you to know I admire all of your works. Sahar Assaf is a theater director, actor. She is a professor of theater at the American University of Beirut, who established the theater initiative there. She is the artistic director of the recently established Directors Lab Mediterranean, the sister lab to the Lincoln Center Theater Directors Lab, which is a very prestigious organization here in the United States that promotes directors professionally. She's also written and directed No Demand, No Supply, a documentary play about sex trafficking in Lebanon. She has also worked at all of the major theaters imaginable in Lebanon and abroad. And her credits as a director include Beit Biyut, which I had the opportunity to see in Lebanon. It was a great performance. She's also worked on plays by Sadallah Wannous, and also Issam Mahfouz, and also she's done devised and documentary theater about the experience of janitors at AUB. Hala Baki is a PhD candidate at UC Santa Barbara. She is somebody who's exploring Arab American theater's interaction with its conditions of production and how it influences its sustainability. She has presented her work at all of the major theater conferences, and she just directed Yusuf El-Gundi's Cha-Cha online as part of a Zoom theater festival at UCSB. And she's also worked with Golden Thread Productions and other major companies here in the United States. Nagham Wehbe, of course, is an award-winning storyteller and director who works in media research and audience insight. She is somebody who has been involved with theater from a very young age, since her father, Ayad Wehbe, who's a very prominent Lebanese theater director and performer, has been a part of her life, of course, growing up. And she learned many of those things from him, which I'd like to talk to you about. Of course. But her recent production, Confessions of an Arab Woman, which she adapted from Jumana Haddad's memoir, won the Encore Producers Award and was extended for months from the Hollywood Fringe Festival. She's currently working on The Seamstress's Daughter, the second novel by Jumana, but it was postponed just because of the COVID-19 pandemic, which we'll talk about as well. Also, Fidaa Zidan is actress, writer, director, born in Beijan in the Galilee region of Palestine, currently living in Haifa. She has recently returned from the United States after a massive tour of Grey Rock, which was a play that was produced and toured through all of the major venues, mainly in the East Coast, which was really exciting. And we really wish we could have seen that production out here on the West. But she's also worked with many famous Palestinian theater directors and writers, and also has performed in film as well. So thanks to all of you. Thank you for being here. Let me start with the question of how are we all doing in this post-COVID situation? I know all of us have had to stop our theater work temporarily. So Sahar, why don't you start us off and tell us how things are going? Of course, we're dealing with the economic and political tumult in Lebanon right now. It's so sad to see Lebanon suffering through this, but how is everything there, and how are you doing as a theater maker at this time?
Hi, Malek, and hi, everyone. I'm very honored to be here with you. Thank you for the invitation. In terms of COVID-19, right now we went into total lockdown like the rest of the world, but just last week, all the curfews were lifted, the lockdown was lifted, and things started going back little by little to normal. We're still registering new cases of COVID, but the numbers compared to the rest of the world have been, you know, relatively speaking, controlled to an extent. The airport is still shut down. I'm hearing that probably end of this month will open again, including cinemas and theaters. So the theaters want, you know, we're obviously, you know, on lockdown as well. In general, the summer term is not a high season for theater in Lebanon. Usually in the summer in Lebanon, we have the summer festivals like the famous Beit el-Din Festival or Juni Festival or Byblos Festival, and they bring international, you know, shows from all around the world. So, but this won't happen, obviously, again this summer due to the situation. So, you know, right now we're in it's a very strange mode. Honestly, I don't know even how to describe it, but I've been trying to work a little bit, you know, prepare for next shows as if everything's going to go back to normal, but we don't know what normal is anymore. So, you know, I'm in a state of thinking some shows, but thinking of plan Bs at the same time. And obviously the economic situation in Lebanon is really bad. We're thinking fast, Malik. It's so sad. We're reaching another political deadlock. You know, we've been living these deadlocks since I was born. Basically, I was born during the Civil War, and after the Civil War, we had few years of peace, quote unquote. But you know, right now it's the same people running office. You know, exactly the same people who did the Civil War. So I personally have zero hope that anything will change with these people around. But to tell you the truth, I mean, the October 17 revolution had been quite different. It's not anything we've witnessed before. This is the first time we feel that people, you know, even partisans are starting to change their mindset and are starting to believe that they need to be proactive for things for their rights, basically. So, but at the same time, we know, you know, it's going to take a long time for us to be able to do anything, because these politicians are like octopus. They have legs and hands everywhere, rooted, you know. So the whole system needs to change for us to breathe. But what's sad now is that so many people, not only because of COVID, but also because of the political and economic situation, are losing their livelihoods. And you see it with your own eyes. You know, the dollar, the exchange rate has, you know, increased, like, how do you say, skyrocketed basically in the last month. And week by, you feel it when you go buy stuff, for instance. The simple example, like from week to week, you're paying extra and extra and extra. And then at a certain point, you know, some people won't be able to make it. So I don't know. It's not something that that's hopeful. It's not a hopeful situation, honestly.
Yeah. Thank you. It's, yes, we're all feeling so, you know, our hearts are drawn to Lebanon, our you know, ancestral homeland, and we miss it, and we're also very sad to see that the same problems are still there. But inshallah, things will change. We'll see. Hala, Hala, how's everything going for you? Now you're located in Santa Barbara, but you've recently done some theater on Zoom, which is exciting, which I had an opportunity to watch. But what are you hearing also from your relatives overseas, and how is this situation for you now?
Yeah, I mean, hearing a lot of the same things. The difficulties of day-to-day life are increasing. And as far as the experience here, I mean, as a student and an educator, it's made things very difficult this past quarter. But somehow the silver lining was getting creative and thinking outside the box, and you know, making sure that some sense of normalcy continues. And I'm very grateful for the department at UC Santa Barbara that was able to think on its feet and immediately came up with this brilliant idea of bringing playwrights and actors and directors and designers together for this really wonderful experience. And it definitely, you know, kind of toes the line between film and theater in a very strange way, but it was thoroughly enjoyable, and yeah, maybe it will be new model for theater, some way to think about theater expanding its audience a little bit in this day and age where technology is such an integral part of our lives, and distances no longer really divide us as they used to. I think theater is sort of trying to, theater's liveness always fills a need for us that film can never completely fulfill. But I think what this coronavirus situation has created is the opportunity to find ways where theater can reinvent itself in a new way.
Absolutely.
So that's been my experience so far.
Thank you. Nagham, how about you? I know your play, unfortunately, has gone into pause at this time, but what are you feeling about what's happening next and the next steps, Hala?
Yeah, first, thank you for having us, and hello to everybody. With our play, yeah, it was supposed to open 1 week before quarantine happened and the lockdown, so we had to reschedule. But as Hala said, I think the coronavirus situation has brought the theater community in LA in a different way. There has been a lot of Zoom play readings, actors coming together, new plays, like people reading it and then doing feedback and discussions. With my play specifically, we're still rehearsing on Zoom. So it's interesting. We've been working a lot about, you know, intentions and behind every line, since we can't really move on Zoom. But, and just editing, which I don't know how much the actors are going to like that. But since we're here, I've been just working on the adaptation more and getting more feedback from mentors and seeing how can we elevate it and make it even better and better, since we don't know really when theaters are going to open back up in LA.
Yeah. Would you consider putting it as a Zoom play as well, or no?
No.
Good, just checking. All right.
Maybe Confessions, the first play, the first adaptation, maybe because we recorded it. So this time has also like given us time to edit it and put it together. So maybe that we might put it on Zoom if we stay in the situation for a while. But the seamstress daughter, I think we need to have it first in the theater. So we'll wait.
Absolutely. Thank you. Fidaa, how are you? How is everything going there with you and the lockdown and theatrically as well?
Well, things first, hello all, and thank you for this opportunity to be here with you all. The things here are start to going back to the normal life, I guess. They're saying that there is another wave of corona, that it must be soon, but meanwhile, you know, they allowed the social events until 250 people. There were like in the 48 area in Palestine. I live in the 48 area, which considered as Israel. So this, so here there was a lot of demonstration about to lock down the theaters. Meanwhile, social events, they are allowed to make it. So, you know, meanwhile in Palestine 67, there like the theater, the lockdown is more stressed there, and also they are probably dealing how still to bring people from Palestinian from outside back to Palestine. Theatrical here, you know, a lot of stuff canceled, like everywhere. It start like I start to get phones and calls about jobs, about another, you know, they want the show. So I think like I'm waiting.
Sure. Did you all record Grey Rock, and will it be able to be screened online?
Yes, it is. I guess. I mean, they didn't like bring it. You know, I guess it's not yet online, but this is. It will be soon. Yeah.
Good. Good.
It's
We'd
still
love
a
to see.
personal link, so I can send it also. Yeah.
I understand. So, you know, all of us, you know, come from this
Yeah.
interesting Druze background, and I was just wondering, as growing up, What was theater like for all of you? Was it something that you had in your life? I know, Nagham, you did, but is this something that you had in your life growing up? And when did you decide to commit to a career as theater artists?
Well, with me, my dad has been involved in theater since since forever. He taught theater and he directed plays and he had his theater troupe. And so growing up, I guess I would go to rehearsals instead of like playing with kids. It was just my thing. So I would go to rehearsals and watch what they're doing and how the whole process unfolds. So I was always very involved in theater. And at some point, like when I was around teenager, I guess, I started like begging him, like, please give me like something to do other than watching. So I started sometimes he'll let me be the assistant for the lighting director, the assistant for the stage manager. And I mean, I would shadow the different roles in theater. So yeah, so since growing up, like theater was part of my life. I've always also went and watched plays or watched TV, like filmed plays and discussed it. He used to give me like Brecht plays. He was like, read this. And I'm just like, what does this word mean? So yeah, it was always part of my life.
That's great. What about you, Hala?
I actually, excuse me, I wouldn't say that it was such a big part of my life as a child, but you know, when I got into high school and started doing theater, I was more into music
Sure.
before that, and so after, you know, I caught the bug, as they say, in high school, I just decided to continue with it and followed it all the way to today. So as far as being exposed to it, you know, in my youth, I think it was, you know, masrahiyat, the old plays that my parents' generation grew up with, were things that I experienced, but like never fully appreciated until I became older.
Sure.
So that's my germ, I guess.
Right. What about you, Fidaa? Did you grow up with a lot of theater in your life? Oh,
absolutely not. There was not like grow up. I knew that there was a theater in my village, and my brother used to be in that theater. And then I did a bit of theater when until age 10, and then there was nothing. Like I saw few plays that they bring to school, but then I didn't act or play or even read theater until I started to study theater, because in the beginning, my parents want me to study law, and then this is what I want too. But when I go for one, like I get accepted for a few colleges, and then I said, okay, I'll do 1 year preparation in Haifa University to study law in the university. But then I discovered all of this. Like I discovered, or let's say I face it again. I face the theater again, the subject. Then I knew that this is what I wanted to do.
Great. What about you, Sahar? Did you have theater growing up as a child? Were you part of it? Oh, I think Sahar might be with Zad right now, so we'll get back to her. One of the questions somebody asked, by the way, to our invited audience, you can go to the Q&A and ask questions.
As an audience member only.
Go ahead, Sahar.
Can you hear? I've been.
We can hear you. Oh. Okay, I think we lost Sahar again. Okay, well, we'll come back.
Sorry.
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah, thank you. I lost some of the conversation.
That's okay. We're not hearing you right now. So while Sahar tries to reconnect, are you there, Sahar?
Yeah.
Okay. So
It seems my internet is unstable, like everything else in Lebanon, unfortunately.
Right. One question.
I'm here, Malek, but I don't think you're hearing me correct. I mean,
Yeah, I think you're breaking up a little bit right now. Let me pose this question from one of our audience members. What's your advice for someone who loves entertainment and took theater classes in college? This is a young lady who wrote in for us. Anybody want to answer that one?
Can you repeat the question?
What is your advice for someone who loves entertainment and took theater in college?
Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just pursue what you're passionate about, because you will probably come up, against a lot of challenges. And I'm not just speaking about, cultural challenges, depending on your background, because I know that's something we talked about, but also just challenges in defining your success in the field, right? And what others might impose on you as the definition of success. So I just say, just do it and do what makes you happy.
Right. One thing I would add to Hala's answers is just do it, and also get involved, get involved with theater groups, go watch theater, go support people who are in theater. Whether it's good or bad, just you'll always learn something from it. So just get out there.
I will add just one little point, just to follow this instinct and not to think twice, just to not to be afraid to jump into this experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sahar, are you there? Can you? Okay, we'll try to get Sahar back shortly. Also, what are the obstacles you all have faced in trying to get your work out there? What are some of the challenges that you face regularly?
I'm here. If you can hear me.
Yes, now we can hear you, Sahar. Sahar? So what are the challenges you all have faced? I mean, both maybe culturally, but also as women in this field. Is there anything you want to share about that?
Well, with me, with putting together Confessions of an Arab Woman, and also I want to send hello to Jumana Haddad, who's the author of the book Confessions of an Arab Woman and The Seamstress Daughter, for her openness and permission to, she just gave me open permission to adapt both books, which was really encouraging and helpful as an artist. I didn't have to, there wasn't a lot of conditions, but with putting together the first play, Confessions of an Arab Woman, adapted from her book, the challenges were just producing it, getting the funding necessary, bringing people together to put it, also spreading the word about it and getting people there. So there's not a lot of Arab American or Arab subject theater, so we don't have, I don't think in LA, or not that I know of, there's no, I know in New York there's Noor Theater, but I'm not sure if in LA there is a theater company that is dedicated to Arab Americans or Arab artists. So it's you're on your own, and with me, I had to just reach out, personally reach out to organizations and community, and I'm donate, support, how can you help us to put us together? So sometimes this can be challenging in a way, because you are taken away from the artistic medium, doing the art, or worrying about directing or getting the play together, because you have to worry about how to actually have it happen. So that is one thing. We don't have enough support, I guess.
I agree with Nagham that the production aspect, getting production support, is one of the big challenges, and your experience reminds me so much of my first experience after college. I was interning at different theater companies around LA, and none of them were doing diverse work, let alone Arab American work. So I really wanted to direct my own show and have it be an Arab American play. And so I wanted to produce The Black Eyed by Betty Shamia, and I ended up just getting my friend, who was also a graduate of the same program with me and was local in LA. I convinced her that we should do it together, independently produce it. We financed it ourselves with what little money we had. We found a little hole in the wall theater in North Hollywood, and we produced it. So it was very challenging, but also extremely rewarding. So I think that experience, and obviously hearing your experience, Nagham, and others, sound very similar, got me so interested in advocating for better infrastructures for Arab American theater. Malek, you're muted.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just did the same thing. I always ask people. Fidaa, do you have trouble getting funding for your productions there?
Oh, yeah, this is, I guess, the problem of any freelance. So it's not easy. There is also, like, there is a lot of funds. There is a lot of opportunity that I can apply for it, but I choose not, because there is the Israeli funds, there is the Palestinian funds, so the cultural, so it's also mixed with the political issues for me that I have. So, but the last production that I produced, and it was my monodrama that I wrote and played, and it was directed by Siwar Awad. She's also she's my colleague and my partner, and like in theater. So we have the funds from Al Qattan Foundation from Ramallah, that they are, for me, it's like the first organization that support Palestinian artists right now. But still, like, if it was hard now, it's like it's almost not possible. But we are trying. We keep trying for it. There is a lot of projects that really need or look for home and funds that we want to bring it to life.
Yeah. Well, by the way, I'd like to just throw a shout out to several companies here in the US that do Middle Eastern and Arab American work and Arab work. Golden Thread Productions in San Francisco, Silk Road Rising in Chicago, Noor Theater, of course, in New York. There's just so many great organizations like this. And I think one of the tricks is, how do we come together and get the kind of resources we need to make this happen? Also, the AFAC, the Arab Fund for Arts and Culture, is another great opportunity for Arab artists specifically to get funding. So please reach out to them. I'm sure they would love to get your applications. So another question I received was, first of all, Taranj Yehizarian said, much love to Fidaa. I had the pleasure of seeing Grey Rock at the Guthrie and meeting the cast. A moving play and excellent production. So mabruk, mabruk. Another question that came up is, how, for those of you who consider yourselves Arab artists, how do you view Arab American theater? And conversely, if you consider yourself Arab American, how do you view Arab theater in contrast? Can we explore that for a moment?
Well, I can say I consider myself Arab American, an Arab American artist and educator. And Arab theater is, I think, integral to both of those facets of my identity as a theater artist and an educator. You kind of can't divorce the two from each other, because subject matter and the sort of emotional and political and social lineage of it is all intertwined. So they definitely inform each other. And I know that that's not to say that they compare, because obviously the experiences are so varied and diverse, and even within the Arab American theater, it's so pluralistic. So, but I do think that it is definitely connected.
Yeah. How about you? Do you know many Arab American artists, or did you meet them? And what does that work say to you?
Wow, it's like I met a lot of artists, dancers and theater makers, but for me also to perform, for example, in the US or doing Arab theater or Arab American theater, which was also Grey Rock was written and directed by Amir Nizar Zobi for the American audience. And what does that mean when you when I mean, I want to talk because I'm a Palestinian, so my experience as a Palestinian actress act in English or in the US, like American play, you can say. So it was like for me. It was like to take the subjects or the subject, the issues that we want to bring from our place, and for bring them to international audience. So you need to also give this introduction about the place, about the the community, the people, how they talk, how they love, how they be angry, and meanwhile also to talk to these people and to the audience in their language. So a lot of the text, it was American humor. So in the beginning, for sure, the director, he knew it. But for me, for example, doing this for the first time in English, and people was laughing, so I was, okay, I did it. But it was a punchline like that. Sometimes this kind that make the culture, that make the unique stuff, that make the humor in the culture. This is what I can say from this side.
Sure. Sahar, are you there?
We miss Sahar.
Oh, we miss Sahar. Okay.
We miss her.
Hopefully
We
she'll come
want
back.
to see her.
I know. Nagham, what about you?
Yeah, I was
having your father be such a prominent Lebanese artist and then doing your own work here, what are the connections or
I'm here,
misconnections?
Malek.
Hi, Sahar. Are you there?
I am so sorry. I missed part.
That's okay. You're still breaking up a little bit. Okay, we'll come right back to you. Nagham, would you like to?
Yeah. So I could
I'm
relate.
here, Malek. I can hear some of the conversation, but it's cutting. I know. I'm sorry. This is we. Okay.
That's okay.
I think she's getting the answers delayed.
Sure.
I could relate to Hala and Fida's answers. With me, I mean, they're so together. Also being for 17 years in Lebanon and now 12 years here. So I've had both experiences. They're so related, and with confessions, and I think that's going to be, or so far that is my style, I guess, with my theater, it is a little bit of both, like bringing the Arab experience but using things I've learned from American theater or Arab American theater, like mixing both. In Confessions it was about an Arab woman, but then the cast was it was like 5 actresses, but each one was from different race, and it was about the uniqueness of that story, but also how it's universal. And we had to do what Fidaa was talking about, like making making it relatable to American audience, because we had Lebanese and Middle Eastern audience come and watch the play, but we also had a lot of American audience. So explaining the history, having to stop the play at some points, like as part of the play, and pause the actors, and one of the actors come out and explain to them, so let me tell you about the Lebanese Civil War, or like, so a mix of both, and also having jokes or underlying references about Trump or about American culture. So for me, it's a mix of both, and they both give and take from each other.
Sure. Sahar, can you hear us? Okay, I'm going to ask another question, and then we'll go from there. What are the stereotypes you often encounter about being Arab American, and how do you deal with that in your theater?
For me, it's been sometimes stereotypes from both sides. So the American audience, are usually in the West, Arab or Arab women specifically, there's this notion of like the victim, or it's all Muslims, or they need help, or that's the majority of the conception. So it's just deconstructing that stereotype and just like saying like, well, no, there's other stories, and that's part of the stories we tell, like with Confessions or with the Seamstress. It's just showing stories of resilient, strong women that are from the Middle East, or that are Arab, and it has nothing to do with the stereotypes. On the other hand, sometimes, or in my experience with Confessions, there were some Arab women that were, because it was too much, like it was like not traditional, like what are you trying to show about the Arab woman? So it's like a knife from the both sides. But so those are like some things that came up in my experience.
Sahar wrote, she wanted to say she's familiar with Arab American theater, such as plays by Betty Shamia and Heather Raffo, but she cannot say they've influenced her work there. Since she practices theater in Lebanon, she doesn't have the same urge to put up front the Arab part of her identity. Fidaa, what about being Palestinian? You know, a lot of people here don't really well, first, I don't think they know a lot about what Palestinian means, but also it's a very diverse culture. I mean, you have Christians, you have Muslims, you have Druze, you have many other people within the Palestinians. So can you tell us about stereotypes maybe you've felt as a Palestinian?
Well, you mean in America, what I faced there, or
Yeah.
just in my community in Palestine?
No, actually,
Yeah.
here. Did you face any strange?
So, if I want, as you said, the people they don't know a lot about Palestine. So when they ask me from where are you, and I say I'm from Palestine, they say from Pakistan. I say no, from Palestine. So I say from, I don't know, another. So, but as a theater maker, to be in the U.S. in Palestine, I didn't identities and cultures, but it's depends where also, you know. So in the US, probably I didn't face that. I didn't face a lot about being Palestinian, but also because we were in certain places. But in general, when I myself as a Palestinian actress here, it sounds good. Doesn't sound good because I'm 48 side. I'm also in a conservative society, which is most of the Druze in my society are considered themselves as Israelis. So so this is the let's say the things that I faced here when I said Palestinian actress or being. So in the US, I'm fine. Here, less.
Right. Hala, what about you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I guess.
I just wanted to say something that Nagham was saying about how there's the sort of dual stereotype or dual expectations that Arab American artists face.
Yeah.
Not so sure about Arab artists in the Middle East, but yeah, there are these expectations that we have to come up against that are the stereotypes of the other, whatever the other is, and they come from both sides. And it does, as Jamil and yourself and others have written about, kind of force us into this stance as artists that we always have to be defending ourselves in a way, or sort of addressing certain issues that otherwise we wouldn't address because they really make us and make, you know, our characters and our stories one-dimensional in a way, right? Yeah. And they sort of keep us from exploring the richness of what it means to be Arab American. And something that Sahar said in her answer that she wrote, you know, you don't feel like you have to foreground the Arabness when you are, you know, not being othered in the way that we are here in the United States.
I tell the stories that speak to my heart and mind as a human who experiences and is experiencing life through various lenses. One is being a cisgender, one who is being born to a Druze family, one who is married to a Christian, one who's lived abroad and traveled much, one who's lived and survived through the war. Yeah, you know, I think that amazing complexity is often lost with many people when they think about where, you know, the Middle East is and what it's about and the people that come from there. I grew up with a nice older lady next door who once asked about our Palestinian friend who's from Bethlehem, and she said, is she Muslim Christian? And I said, no, she's Christian from pretty much the beginning. You know, from the days of Christ, her family has been Christian. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings, of course. What about somebody else asked, she's one of our former graduates, Dr. Olga Sanchez-Sulfite, asked, for anyone, I'm curious about the Arab diaspora theater in Latin America and or Arab Latinx theater in the US. Does anybody have any experience with South American Arab culture or theater? Anyone?
No, but that's been an area I'm so curious about too. So we should connect.
Yes, I think you would be amazing colleagues working together because she, you know, I think Olga does bring up a very good point. There is a huge diaspora in Central and South America that we rarely talk about when we talk about Arab American as a genre. And I think that's just mainly a language differential. But yeah, it's something that definitely should be explored with more depth. What about intersectionality? Somebody asked, what about, you know, the intersections of being female, of being from different communities from the Middle East, and how do you navigate that?
Well, I can to be a female making art and like the fields are in culture fields, it's not taking for granted here. It's like especially from a conservative society that they appreciate or much more for example, to study medical, pharmacy, engineering, and this is the you know, the good positions to be in our society, or also like you can make more money and stuff through a lot. First of all, it's still weird for people when they know that I'm theater maker and coming from Beijing, for example. for people from outside, for people also, you know, they type about this society that must be conservative. And so in the village, I could face it, and also out of the village. But probably there is a lot of interruption, like, you know, for women in general, and especially in this small, like, you know, theaters, a lot of times also going by small circles. So this is also another place is not really comfortable to be sometimes, because you need all the time to prove that you are exist during sometimes conversations or during rehearsals. Sometimes I face it there, I face it here, but there is something inside. It's always like much, and this belief that theater can change also even these places and this subject and these issues that we face. So it's much bigger, especially when women, for me, doing theater, it's like to surpass and overcome all, like to surpass all the difficulties that we have, and to lead these spaces that need change by theater. It's not an easy way. I guess each woman that choose to do theater, she will discover this during the road, because in the beginning we are follow our dreams and a bit innocent. Then we then now we trying to keep our innocent. We fight to keep it, and it's not easy. But when women lead these spaces, this space, they lead it for change, and the change become, you know, like a space between reality and the dream. Exactly.
Yeah, you know, I think to Sahar, if you can hear me, I think about your work and how you've done site-specific plays about the Lebanese Civil War. You've done documentary plays, as we said, about the different workers at AUB or the sex trafficking in Lebanon. You know, these are really important issues, and I think that it's just amazing that theater has that power, because so much of the theater we know of from Lebanon that's popular, of course, is song and dance, etc. But definitely, what has it been like for you to explore those difficult topics? I'll see if Sahar replies on the chat to that in a moment. What about the rest of you? I mean, what have been the most controversial, you know, topics you've dealt with in theater, and how have you received any negative backlash for doing so?
I mean, with Confessions of an Arab Woman, there was layers and layers of different subjects, because it was about being a woman in Lebanon without being a victim, and also the political stuff that comes with it, because part of her identity is war and surviving war and dealing with war, the civil war and the different religions, conservative ways of living, and how to break free from that. So with that play, like, it was a lot of those under, like, different subjects all together in one story. And I was being very careful, because I don't want to portray stereotypes, and I don't want to also like, there are some stuff maybe I may not agree 100%, but also I want to be true to the book, because it was an adaptation as well. So in that way, there was like all those intersections and complex subjects. With backlash, I don't think there wasn't a lot of backlash. There was just what I talked about, and Hala also talked about it. There were a few I mean, it's hard how I do theater because the story, I mean, I did Confessions because the story spoke to me and I wanted more people to see it. It's a book and I wanted more people to experience it. And that's why I decided to do it. And sometimes you can't please everybody because it's a specific story about a specific person and it's her life and how the choices she make. And there is no perfect character like that. And there's that expectation because it is theater or because you are portraying an Arab subject or an Arab story, you have to make it a certain way. And it's like none of us are perfect. It's just there's a spotlight on it because it is on stage. So you may there's a little bit of backlash that may come from that, but I mean it's part of the process. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah, Sahar said the works I mentioned were extremely well received in Lebanon, mainly because I think because these are stories that need to be heard. People are thirsty to talk about issues related to the Civil War, although it's been 20 years since the war ended. But as you know, there really was never a reconciliation process to help those who lived it move forward. And yeah, you know, I think that that's really a powerful thing. You know, in the Middle East, we don't have a lot of monuments and statues and walls with names on them to commemorate these events. And so I feel sometimes theater is a real testimonial to what's happening. And it's an important one, of course. I think Grey Rock was, in its own way, a testimonial to what's happening in Palestine. How are you feeling, Fidaa, about this idea of the annexation that's in the news right now? And what do you think theater will do about that?
About what?
About the annexation of the West Bank by Israel.
Oh my God. First of all, like, you know, there is a lot of, each day there is a decision for us here, and we continue living as we live. We still have borders, and we will still have these borders for now or for maybe next few years. But I mean, I don't wanna sound, you know, depressed or I have no hope. I have the hope, but for me, what I think about it, or it exists in the ground, the borders and everything. It's exists, but for us, for Palestinian, we are, or an artist, me also personally trying to. This is only on ground. I'm not allowed to bring this border to our mind, to my mind, to my work, to my experience also, and co-working with the, you know, this co-working with the 48 Palestinian and 67 Palestinian. It exists, and a lot of artists doing this, and a lot of people, you know, they are relatives, so there is a lot of decisions that they can influence, for sure, can influence, you know, also for our freedom and for our spirit, but still we don't have a lot to do with it. We will continue, and we are continue. I wanted to say something about the subject also, which is related, and also as a Palestinian, as a Palestinian Druze actress, the subject that it's really that I choose to work with in the theater. Usually, like, I think directly it goes to the activist theater, bringing subjects that people don't want sometimes also to talk about. It's saying that the civil war in Lebanon, that also as a Palestinian, which I live next to Lebanon, I'm in the Galilee, Jalil. So also this words, this stuff that we face, that our people face immediately, like, this is the first subject that I want to talk about or to bring to stage. Same, which the last day of spring, the monodrama, it's first of all, it's about stuff in my society that they don't want to bring, like like the you know, that they force the Druze to go to serve in the army. So This was the main subject that and loss, of course. And doing English also, this is now the third thing that I wanted to talk about, that I feel the need to bring also this subject in English so people can more know about it, because sometimes here, sometimes if there's nothing to do, when people hear about stuff from outside, so sometimes they can take it in a different way easily, not from the same place.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sahar wrote, about intersectionality, for me, what I try to do is diversify the production team as much as possible. I think we create a safe space for people to share, interact, and connect. We start to challenge the myths and biases about people of different sexual orientations, gender, religious sects, etc. We start to promote healthy dialogue that allows us to break down our conscious and unconscious biases and essentially grow to become better humans. There is no better place to do that than theater. I also try to tackle subjects of systemic discrimination, and while doing so, respect the voices of those mainly impacted by the injustice and allowing them to build their own narrative. Recent examples of such work I undertook was the No Demand, No Supply, Min El Feltin, about sexual assault. So yeah, this idea of diversity in our space, and Nagham, you talked about that with your production, bringing in the different women from different races to, exemplify these characters, represent them. Given everything we're facing right now, especially with the murders of George Floyd and other African Americans and this uprising, what can we all do to contribute to help change the narrative?
I think I will answer your question in just 1 second, but it kind of relates to a thought I had connecting both Nagham and Fida's answers and Sahar's to a certain extent too. That theater, we can't forget that theater is not just about exploration and translation of culture and ideas, but it's also education. It has an educational and activist mission. So even when it's not explicit, it is communicating something or teaching something. So to your answer, first about intersectionality, that is what I try to do with my theater, both as an artist, as an educator. Just making sure that, as Nagham was saying, that like a single story doesn't stand in for a whole. We're not generalizing, we're instead nuancing, and we're, as Fidaa was saying, sort of crossing intellectual borders as well, like as political and national and all those things. And I think that also answers the question about what to do in our current moment in the US in light of all the racial tension that is inflamed right now. So it's more important than ever to actually have those conversations, and theater is really a great venue, and maybe the only venue that truly is democratic and agonal at the same time, right? Like it's the final frontier in a way for civil discourse. So I really think that creating more work in solidarity, or in not even in solidarity, but in collaboration with diverse groups, at least in the US, yeah, I could speak to that more directly, but like creating new works with other communities that are also underrepresented is the best way to sort of come together over shared values rather than sort of the labels of identity politics.
Sure. Sahar, I see you've joined us on the phone. Can you hear us?
I can hear you perfectly, Malek. I apologize. Can you hear me now?
I apologize to you for trying to speak your words, which are so eloquent. I know you do much better than I ever would, but can you tell us more about?
And then I did great.
So do you have any responses to what you've been hearing in the past few minutes?
I mean, I don't want to interrupt the flow. If you'd like me to address something in particular, because I've been hearing, like, I've been hearing you, but you were breaking, so I probably missed some of the discussion. But I'm happy to address anything you'd like me to.
Well, here's a question. You know, we talk a lot about how difficult it is for Arab and Arab American women to find roles in theater, film, and television in the US. In Lebanon, you know, what has been the struggle, the sort of casting struggles, the difficult struggles there in the theater world specifically?
You know, from my experience, I wouldn't say it's really a struggle because mainly like from the people that I know in the country, and you know, Lebanon is quite a small country, so we know each other, all those who work in the theater, we kind of know each other. And I've been noticing that, you know, women in particular, they're really out there creating their own opportunities. So myself, for instance, if there's a role I'd like to play, I make sure I produce the play, or I find ways to produce the play. I pitch it to people, I make people read the play, I find a director who's interested in it, or a producer who's interested in it, and many other people do the same thing. Perhaps it's a little bit challenging though to be, you know, to be present in the TV world, because mainly the producers here in Lebanon, they don't care about talent or about education or theater training. They basically care about looks, and a very particular type of looks. So you find, for instance, you know, beauty pageants making it to the stardom of TV, soap operas, and these are really bad. Like I don't watch TV, and I know many people in the theater cannot stand to see these shows because they're far from, you know, anything we've learned, you know. But in terms of the theater scene itself, it's very diverse in Lebanon, you know, and people are out there, men, women, out there creating their own opportunities and their own styles. You see, you know, it ranges from traditional commercial theater, you know, to site-specific, to device theater, to playback, to drama therapy, you know, improvisational theater. Basically everything, you know, that's happening. So people use the medium that they are familiar with or that speaks to them to tell the stories.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always amazed by how politically active Lebanese theater really is, and how few people understand that and know that. But it's so powerful what's happening there, and I think that you know, it's a testament to the fact that Lebanon, you know, has such a great artistic culture, but then using that artistic culture in the theater specifically to address the real social issues that you're facing.
I mean, it's been like that, you know. Theater thrives whenever we have a conflict, and we've been having conflict for the past, you know, 20-something years. So it's becoming better and better, the theater scene. People are really experienced. They're really, you know, very aggressive in the way they do theater. They're very active. We have companies emerging. We have, you know, new theater spaces opening, although some are closing down, but we have new spaces opening. Many people go out and do theater in sound spaces, alternative spaces, on the street, you know. Post October 17 revolution, there's this also movement to kind of tackle the censorship directly. So it's like a political stance now that people don't submit their text to the censorship office. Mm-hmm. We have prior censorship still. So what's been happening post October revolution is that people are not submitting their text to the censorship office and just putting it out there. So, you know, they're very courageous, I have to say. I'm very impressed by my colleagues here. Some I know, some I don't know, but I really have huge respect to everyone working, because I think just to be out there doing theater with all the things that are happening that we have to deal with, all the struggles, is a form of resistance on its own. It's a fight, you know. We have to fight to do it, and people are not, you know, taking a breath. They're just fighting nonstop.
Yeah. It's inspiring, really. I mean, Fidaa, it's the same thing there. Do you find one of my colleagues, Deborah Eliezer, has asked, being in one of the more diverse areas of Israel, is your work finding platforms or Israeli partnerships, or is that something that doesn't happen very often?
In my work, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I studies in Israeli University. That means I studied in Hebrew, my first degree, my second degree also, and there was a partners in during the studies. Usually I'm looking, you know, I'm trying even in this really sensitive place. I'm trying not to judge the person upon to his identity or his religious, but usually in like there is like it's up to the subject, it's up to the material itself, to what where like if I like it, if I agree with it, if there is something that I want to add. But usually the last, let's say, the last almost 8 years, I didn't have this collaboration out of the university.
I see. Yeah. Also, somebody asked.
But meanwhile, for example, I part in.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So I said also like, but there is a project that I participate, like, you know, short movies for students, for stuff like this. But I repeat myself, it's still it's in the form of the university.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, I promise not to keep you too long. So what I'd like to do is actually go around and have each of you just maybe share some parting thoughts with our attendees today. Sahar, will you start off and maybe just give us kind of a vision for what you're envisioning for the next few years, where you are, and what you're seeing changing or happening, especially given our new situation?
Sorry, Malek, can you say that again?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what do you envision in the next few years where you are, especially given what's happened with COVID and the crisis in Lebanon?
For theater in general, or you're asking like
for you specifically?
At all levels. For me,
yeah.
You know, I'm as you said, I'm teaching at the American University of Beirut, and we have plans for the theater initiative, which we founded, Robert Myers and myself, in 2015. We've been working together since 2013, and we do have plans for the next year. We wanted to take a break from all the heavy stuff that we've been working on, and we wanted to do Noises Off by Michael Frayn. That was supposed to happen in 2020, fall of 2020, but due to COVID and the economic situation, we pushed this to 2021. And honestly, now I'm not sure if this is going to stand or not, because it needs a huge budget, as you know, and we don't want to invest in something that won't help us sustain the initiative and bring us at least some box office profit. At the personal level, I'm still working on the documentary play that I did, No Demand, No Supply, because the trafficking story that I start off, you know, with this for this play, it's based on all real material, and it's about a trafficking network that got busted in 2016, and the traffickers are still, the court sessions are still happening. So this is an issue that you know, is not finished yet. So I feel obliged and responsible to keep telling the stories until a just resolution is met for the women, at least. So this is something that's still on my agenda and my plans. And I do have also other things that I'm working on. Some are still in the early stages. Some are, you know, I'm trying to reignite the work that we started with the Tahweel Theatre Company, which is you know, a small theatre company that we started in 2015 with Abbe Debut that you saw, which is based on August Osage County by Tracy Letts. So we're now collecting material. You know, we're aiming for a documentary play about the isolation, the quarantine that we all experienced. So we're now collecting material from various individuals. We don't know how this is gonna shape itself in the future, but we know that we're interested in doing something about the loneliness and about the, you know, the current pandemic and situation that we lived. But to be very, very honest with you, like, I have a plan A and plan B and plan C and plan D, because it's really quite unpredictable here these days. I mean, for instance, one thing like basic stuff, one thing we're thinking about now is that we cannot go on with the same ticket price that we used to take before COVID and before revolution. And it was anyway, it was quite cheap, you know, but still that, even if it was cheap, now we need to, and this is going to make our lives even harder because we don't have funding, like we don't have lots of funding opportunities. So we try to break even in box office. Everyone knows that we cannot live from box office. We cannot live from producing theater. So every one of us has a different job on the side to pay their livelihood, but at least break even and not put from our own money because we have little money. So I don't know. I mean, we're taking it one day at a time, 1 week at a time. I'm not trying to think, to plan too far into the future. I'm just trying to focus on the things that matter to me, on things that speak to my heart, on, and do the best we can. I mean, we're all stuck in this together, I guess.
True. Hala, what about you? What's next for you?
What is next? Well, I hope to continue making work and to continue researching and sort of developing the conversation about Arab American work, which obviously all stands on your shoulders. So
I don't know about that.
For that. But I was thinking about the question about where do we go from here, which you started with, and my hopes for the field as a whole. I think about the current moment, I hope it becomes a sort of a launching pad for a new kind of Arab American theater that is not, especially in light of all the racial discourse that we are having, that is not simply defined by stereotypes and suffering, that can sort of break away from that and, like we were talking about earlier, sort of create more nuanced stories that explore all of our intersections. And in that, I hope that we also are able to generate a bigger, I don't know, maybe not bigger is not the right word, but actually generate an Arab American audience or a Middle Eastern American audience, because I feel like we can't do this without our communities. And to a certain extent, I feel like our communities still resist integrating art as a relevant, or resist seeing art and theater as a relevant and integral part of their lives. So I want to create that value and make sure that what we are creating as far as art is actually being embraced and sort of applied to people's lives, to an audience's life. And in that, lastly, I would say my hope is that we can all connect, not just nationally, but internationally, like we're doing right now, and really become each other's support networks. The subjects that came up earlier about infrastructures and support, whether it is funding or finding talent or creating new stories, that's work that's of course already being done, and I think we just need to make sure that it is maintained and the momentum continues, and that we can sort of pass it on to new generations who will continue to thrive in the arts. So that's my hope.
Thank you. Nagham, what about you? What's next?
With me right now, we're just waiting for theaters to open to have the Seamstress Daughter shown, and hopefully we will be able to go to different cities with it. We purposely made it with only 4 actresses that play different characters, to be able to tour and go to different universities or schools, because it's very educational as well, like about 100 years of history in the Middle East. And other than that, just like Hala said, like seeing how we can come together as Arab Americans or Arab artists and create a support system and push whatever we're doing forward. And I mean, also with the recent events, also checking ourselves, like checking myself, my unconscious biases, and our Arab American communities. There is also like Arab American Black people, so like seeing how we are biased and using theater and stories to break that or move a little bit forward with that. And just for me, I'm more, other than the seamstress daughter, just always looking for stories that connect with me and that I want to bring to life, that will, you know, maybe break down the boxes a lot. We live in a world where everybody's put in a box. You're either this or that or that, and break down the boxes and bring new untold stories and new perspectives to life.
That's great. Thank you. Fidaa, anything you want to share with us about your next step?
I mean, I have this time now that I'm at home because there is everything, you know. So I'm trying to work on the stuff that I need to finish, that I start to write, and I finished like I have already my monodrama translated to English by Amir Nizar Zobi, but now I'm also trying to work on it in Arabic so it can translate it again to English, or this edition. I'm writing with another friend, Mona Hawa. She's a good friend and great actress. Children for Play, that taken by 4 stories from Salman Natour. He's a writer from Dalit al-Karmel. I'm working on my short movie, the first movie that I wrote. It's about El Zabud here. It's an area in Bejan that they tried to take the fields in the 80s. So, you know, there is another production that I'm doing with the Remote Theater Project with Alex Aron from the US, and with John Rose that we met in the Kampala International Theater Festival. So there is a plans, but nothing sure for now. Each plan need funds and a lot of stuff, so we can, you know, also to bring this. Our project is a self-reflection, that then we will have this ability to trigger these changes in the environment. But this is for now, and maybe I need to learn also from Sahar how to do plan A, B, C, and D, so I can survive it. That's it.
Well, you know, I just want you to know, I know I've kept you longer than I said I would, but I want to say thank you to all of you, because you really are inspirational to me. And I just believe so much in your work. There were extra questions that were sent, and I'll try to forward those to you, and maybe we can get those answered because we can't do it now on the Zoom. But thank you to our attendees. Thank you to our amazing panel. Thank you, Sahar. Thank you, Fidaa. Thank you, Hala. Thank you, Nagham. I'm so grateful.
Thank you, Malek, and everyone.
Thank you for your time. And please, if you get a chance, please stop by the Network 1017 site. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Ramzi. Thank you, Sally. And hopefully in the future, all of us will get together and do theater together. Not on Zoom, but in the same room together, inshallah.
Yes.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay.
Thank you, Malek.
Thank you.